If you follow these five messages, and if you practice them throughout the course of your life, I promise you, you'll be fruitful for the Lord. A lot of people will be reached for the Lord if you practice just these five. Let me just go over them. Number one, what is evangelism? It's simply sharing good news. You share about your favorite movies, your favorite TV shows, products, things that you like to use. Why wouldn't you share about the greatest thing that you've ever received? Number two, not trying to do some piece of religion to somebody, but how about sharing the grace of God through your vulnerability, through your authentic humanity, through your weakness. Share your weakness with people because everybody's weak. And this is where we can reach them and meet them. Number three, again, not doing a piece of religion on them, like let's go do evangelism on somebody, but first and foremost, love them. Deep, sincere, genuine works and attitude and heart love toward people. Number four, know the Father's heart, that the Father longs for all those who are prodigal, those who have run away and who are lost from Him, and begin to pray for them and connect to the Father's heart. And as you're praying for them, He will move in them, and He will move in you to begin to love them. And number five, I talked about this message that we are all ambassadors for God. And there are people, you can't go and, you are not interested in meeting the Russian, knowing about the Russian sovereign. And if you did, you would go meet the ambassador, but there are many people who want to meet our sovereign. And God has already set up divine appointments, and the way that they get to connect with Him is to meet His ambassadors, and that's you and me. So if this is really the meat of this series. And you notice there's no tricks, there's no techniques, you're not doing stuff to people. Most of this is really just loving people in weakness, humility, generosity, and expecting that God is going to go reach them, and you're being a part of this work. Just the other portions of this series, I talked about how at the center of Christianity is a holy sacrificial love which triumphs over all things. That's over power and over money and over empires, all these things. Number 7, I gave you a message that at the heart of the gospel, we must always have room. There must always be mindfulness of those people who are poor and hurting and weak. We call this mercy. And without this, we won't have a coherent message and a witness to share of the gospel. And Pastor Young gave us a message that evangelism is an invitation to God's house, and not His church, but into His people. The God's house, that we are a living stone of a temple made of God's people. We're inviting them into the people of God. That's the house of God. Now, but really, let's go back to, I really want to encourage you, these 5, it doesn't seem like it's much, but if you will practice these things and run a race to live this out, people will come to the Lord, and you will have made that difference. And it's a huge and tremendous thing. Now, before we move on, I wanted to give you Tim Keller's, he gives you 10 evangelism tips, and I just thought these are so good that they're worth sharing. I shot these out to some of you guys earlier in this series, but again, he also emphasizes, if you just do these 4, most people think about, these like more advanced, like invite somebody to church, but even before you do these, how about doing these simpler ones? Let people around you know that you are a Christian in a natural and unforced way. How about that? Not doing some churching, but something simple like this. If you're at work and you pray before your meal, people will figure out you're a Christian. They just know. How about number 2? Ask friends about their faith, and then just listen. There's lots of people today, they don't want to hear about what we believe because they think we're trying to do something to them. But how about if you just make it a normal thing to just talk about faith, to the most important stuff, and you just listen to them first. Number 3, listen to your friends' problems, and maybe offer a prayer for them. Offer to pray for them. I've never, in all my life, I've talked to lots of non-Christian friends. Some are just straight atheists, some straight hostile to Christianity. I've never had one person refuse prayer. Never. And so, try that. Number 4, share your problems. This goes back to this message again. Be weak. Why don't you share your problems, and then maybe how you can testify to how your faith helps you when you're at a place or problem. And they're saying, I didn't know that faith could do that for you. And so I think you could all do this, right? This isn't too scary, is it? Some of the other ones, you can offer a friend a book to read, or a portion, or maybe an interesting article. If there's a portion of a sermon, like maybe from me or Pastor Young, and you're like, hey, it's on our website. You should just listen to these key 5 minutes or something like that. Maybe it'll help them and think through an issue. Share your story of how you came to faith. You can answer objections and questions, and you're like, but I'm afraid that they're going to ask a question and I won't know how to answer it. You know what? That's okay. Just say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that, but maybe I can try to find out. And then you can ask, that's why you have pastors. You have pastors, and then maybe I'll offer you an article or a Bible passage that will be helpful to you, or just a line of thought that you hadn't considered before, and then that's something you could share with a friend. Let me offer, I highlighted these two because, we are going through this series, and, this is week number 9. And this isn't just a one-time thing. We're going to do this, and then we're going to do a little evangelism, and then we'll never forget. We want you to make this a life. That these kinds of things will just be the normal things you do in your life. And maybe you'll invite a friend to a church event. And lots of people who don't believe in Jesus are threatened by church, but maybe they won't be threatened about, a white elephant, gift exchange, Christmas party, something like that. Or, and then you can, of course, offer to read the Bible with them. There are many people who are interested in the Bible, but they don't understand it. And you go like, well, I don't understand all of it either. But it's, it's okay. Just because you will be willing to do with them, they'll be open to it. And you'll be surprised. People are interested. Right? And this last one, I thought, invite your friends or your neighbor, or take them to an Explore course. And this, isn't this nice? Because I'm just using this as a plug, because we're going to do this. And so you heard this in the announcements. We're going to have a special meal where there's a Q&A, and just allow seekers. We're not scary. We're not going to do anything weird. Totally, no strings attached, no pressure. And then we're also going to invite people to do a seekers class, and it'll be about 6 weeks, and there'll be some things to read. And nothing too heavy, it won't be too hard, but getting them to just open up. And this is something we want to do, in mid-January. So perhaps you can have this on your mind. You can practice some of these things. You can pray for somebody that you have on your mind. Ask the Lord to give you a divine appointment, and there you go. You'll have an opportunity and to make a difference in this way. Okay. All right. That's enough for the review. Let's get into the meat of today's message. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. I want to talk about this in 3 parts. Part 1. An imperishable prize. This passage talks about how there is a prize. And if you live only within the bubble of being only around Christians and only practicing your faith within the church and within churchianity, like the way I like to put it, then you won't ever really quite experience this imperishable prize. Part 2. What is this prize? It is beloved people as crown and joy. You want a crown and a joy that really, it really fills your life. There's certain people that God's going to bring into your life. The beloved people as crown and joy. And number 3, running the race. Running the race for this imperishable prize. Okay, that's part 3. Let's get into part 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. This is an extraordinary passage, and this is a really deep passage. Theologians have studied this, but I want you to really focus on just the attitude that comes across. If you take in this attitude and make it yours, this isn't just something that's in the Bible, this is Paul's, but this is be your heart's attitude, and this is something you want coming out of your life. You will make an unbelievable difference in people's lives. So let's listen to the way he puts it. Verse 19. For though I am free from all, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win more of them. To the Jews I became as a Jew, in order to win Jews. To those under the law I became as one under the law, though not being myself under the law. What's he saying here? In one sense, there's all kinds of people out there, and whoever it is, I want to serve them, that some may be one toward Jesus. Who are to the Jew as a Jew, I'll be as a Jew. You're like, well, I don't have any friends who are Jewish. You probably do. You may not know that they're Jewish, all right? But when he's talking about to a Jew, I'll be like a Jew, it isn't even just talking about Jews, ethnic Jews. He's talking about people who have a certain religious sensibility. They know that there is a law that is given by God, and that they care that you care about your faith. They care that you care about the laws of God, and that to them, if you just live in a kind of like haphazard manner, in a secular manner, or in a manner they consider immoral, you'll just utterly turn them off. And so to them, even though we're not under the law in one sense, because we've been saved by grace, we will show them a certain kind of kindness. And by the way, like I said, it's not just Jews. Muslims are like this. There are many Muslims today who take their faith very seriously. And if you don't take your faith seriously, they're just like, whatever. There's all these people who say that they're Christians, but are you really even a Christian? But to a Jew, I'll be like a Jew. Or there's lots of Buddhists or Hindus today right here in our cities, and they are like this. To a Jew, I'll be as a Jew. Or to be like a Muslim, I will take my faith seriously, and then they will take you more seriously. He also goes on to say, to those outside the law, verse 21, I became as one outside the law, not being outside the law of God, but under the law of Christ, that I might win those outside the law. And so who's outside the law? Well, that's a spot-on description for back then they would have considered it Gentiles. But today I think to those outside the law would be like the people who consider themselves agnostic or secular. You're like, I'm not sure. Because they don't see themselves as under a law. And in fact, many of them will straight up tell you, yeah, I'm a relativist. I mean, that's you can't be any more outside the law than being a relative. It's all relative. There's no absolute. People will actually say that. And to those people, you know what they want? They don't want to meet up someone who's all religion-y. You're all about religion. You can be a Christian, but one of the things that are the people who are outside the law in our society, they're afraid of is that we're going to come here and judge them, condemn them, impose our religion upon them. But you know what they really want to see? What they consider outside the law is, what they want to see is that you are not so much ruled by the rules, but are you really human? Will you be a genuine, kind person with real love and generosity and humility and forgiveness? Are you like that? Would you be, before you'll be Christian-y and under the law, that you will be like them, seeking, they're saying, you know what, I just want to be would you be a real, authentic person? And this is Paul. He's saying to the Jews, I'll be like this, and show them that I care about my faith. But you know what, to the people outside the law, I'll be different, because this is the way I'll love them. See? And these are some of the ways that we're just trying to teach you, that there's so many different ways to reach people, and people have all kinds of different hang-ups and things that keep them from the Lord. He goes on. Verse 22, to the weak I became weak, that I might win the weak. I'll give you a whole message that, and by the way, who's not weak? To the weak, I'll be weak. You have your friends, and they put up a good front, that I'm all good, you're all good. But you know what, underneath, they're weak. And if you will show your weakness, they'll realize, you're authentic, you're genuine. To the weak, I'll be weak. And here's the portion of this passage that if I can get you to memorize a point, it's this one, this latter portion of verse 22. It's this: I've become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. I will become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. This is the heart that, if you can finish up this series, and that as you live your life out, and you're just, of course you're going to meet some people are Christians, some people are not Christians, we are really anti-Christian, and of course that's really common in our city, that if you take on this attitude, by all means, save some. This isn't easy. And if you would do this, he goes on to say that, there's a race. Run this race. That there'll be a prize. Some of you are thinking like, okay, this is the stuff I'm supposed to do as a Christian. This isn't just the stuff you're supposed to do as a Christian. The Bible promises you rewards. And there is a prize won out of this. And it's a prize that can never be taken away from you. It's an imperishable prize. Every day you wake up, you want some kind of reward from your day, don't you? Whether it's like just a good meal, or a kiss from your wife, or your kids are nice to you, or a job well done from your boss. It could be something silly like this. This weekend, the prize I was looking for when I woke up on Thanksgiving morning was that my favorite football team would win. And so I don't know if you know this, but my favorite team is the Dallas Cowboys. And last year, my kids got me a jersey of my favorite football player of all time. And so I woke up in the morning, took a shower, and then I put that jersey on. And then I went to my brother's house, and my dad looked at me like, what is that? And I said, I'm ready, Dad. I'm ready for this day. And then we watched part of that game. Unfortunately, my sister-in-law, she roots for the other team. And she said, oh, this might not be good. I said, yeah, it might not be good when your team loses. And thankfully they lost. And they didn't lose because our team won. And so I got a prize that day. And you know what, though? It's Sunday, and that prize is already kind of waning, and it's not that great anymore, right? And in a couple years, my team will probably stink again, and then I'll have forgotten all about it, and I'll just be angry about my team. And then that's a prize that perishes away. But this is something you invest in. People. That by all means, you might save some. And it's a prize that you'll have forever. Now let me I want to give you an example of this. Much of these last two messages, they're not so much like how-tos, all right? These last couple messages, I want to just share with you just stories and things that might win you. What life like this could be like, and the celebration and enjoyment that you can have. Because Paul says this, that if we do this, I would share with them, I do this all for the sake of the gospel, and I will share with them in his blessings. There's incredible blessings in the gospel, but that some of them you can't get unless you do certain things with certain other people. Do you know that? That you get certain things from Jesus between you and Jesus, but there's certain blessings from Jesus you can't get unless you share them with someone and you love them and you give yourself to them in a certain way. And so let me share with you something that I love it when this happens. I'm prepping these messages, and I don't know what example I'm going to use. And then the Lord drops one into my lap because I read this magazine, and then while I was reading this column, I was like, oh, here we go. Thanks, Jesus. You just gave me a sermon piece. I subscribe to this magazine. I don't read it all of the time. It's World Magazine. It's a news magazine with a Christian perspective, and this is a column by one of the publishers, a guy named Joel Belz. And the column is called Moms on Campus, right? And what he did was he shared about a group called Marketplace Chaplains. And what they do is they practice things like 1 Corinthians chapter 9. They use all means to save some. And so they go into their workplace and they find different ways to connect different people and just serve them, love them, show them they're Christians, but not in some kind of heavy-handed or kind of pressure-filled way. And so one of his readers heard about this, and she got so excited that she came up with her own way to try to do this. So this is the story. Joan, that's her name, Joan Almendinger, and she lives in Fort Collins, Colorado. Joan and a couple of moms and me heard this, and we were so encouraged because we live in this terribly secular culture. As a Fort Collins mom with a freshman at her hometown college, I recalled an acquaintance telling me how she had helped set up a Moms Listen table. So that's what they did. Moms Listen table at a campus near them. So with several of my friends, I pushed the idea a bit to have a Moms Listen and Pray table. So that's what they set up. Moms Listen and Pray table at the local school, which is Colorado State. I mean, this is something we could do. We have a state school right in our city. Right? So Joan reports that the kids were disarmed. The combination of homemade brownies, New Testaments, and other basic Christian literature, along with personal prayer support, proved appropriately winsome. That's what this mom said. So can you guys see it? There's a campus quad, and there's a bunch of tables out, and one of the tables says, Moms, what does it say? Moms Listen and Pray table. So there's a sign that says Moms Listen and Pray, and so the kids are, what is this? Others are like, come join, the rugby club or something like this, right? Except there's the Moms Listen and Pray table. So they come up to there and said, want a brownie? Well, what is the Moms Listen and Pray table? And you can have a brownie, and we'll pray for you. And we put a hand on students' shoulders and prayed on the spot for their requests. I nearly choked up wondering how many of these kids had never had someone pray aloud for them and with them. That's true. Many of you had someone do exactly this. Doesn't it bless you? There are many people, it's never happened to them. I mean, if you grew up with, unbelieving parents who never stepped in a church, nobody's prayed for you. I mean, literally, nobody's ever prayed for you. That was just for starters. 2 weeks later, the women were back on the Colorado State campus. This time, Joan had begun comparing their efforts with the details World Magazine had reported about the marketplace chaplains. So then she would compare them and figure out new and creative ways. All means to save some. We were making Jesus approachable to a population of whom few probably had a connection to a caring church. We were giving hope, care, and love. And we were sharpening our evangelism skills in a setting that normally can be quite hostile to the gospel. Among those who stopped at the table on the mom's third visit at Colorado State was Syed, a native of Saudi Arabia. I mean, can you guys picture this? There's a guy from Saudi Arabia studying in Fort Collins, Colorado, wandering around the quad one day and like, what is that? And they prayed for this kid from this, predominantly Muslim country. There was another young lady, a girl named Iha. She took a New Testament with her when she left, and she's from China. And she stopped to ask, I had heard that there's cruelty, that the God of the Bible has cruelty. And they said, well, why don't you find out? And we'll be willing to talk about it. And they handed her, she said, sure. And there was a young man named Jeff. Jeff asked the women to pray that he would be more joyous. And a fellow attending an adjourning table simply and sweetly asked for prayer for his parents whom he missed. So you can see it now. The kid at the rugby table sitting there next to the moms. Can I have a brownie? I really miss home. Would you pray for me? You see that? We'll try to be on campus one more time before the snow flies, because this is Colorado, It's not always easy to get approval from university officials for table space. So you could see they had to go through steps. They had to find out how to do it the right way and honor the authorities of the university. And popular as it may be, homemade candy, they actually made it homemade. Homemade candy is now forbidden and has been replaced with a pre-wrapped variety that has passed county health standards. And we'd like to find an indoor venue. Maybe you guys can pray for that, because this is Colorado. It's going to get cold, and they'd love to continue this ministry indoors in the winter. And listen to this. Joan makes an important point. I surely don't consider evangelism to be one of my strengths. Okay, this is a lady who doesn't think she's good at evangelism. You guys probably don't think you're good at evangelism. I also have MS. She has multiple sclerosis, so she actually has a debilitating disease, which at times makes my voice gravelly, weakens my volume, and limits my mobility. And yet, by all means, I'll save some. And maybe Syed, maybe Iha, And even if they don't get saved, one of these days, maybe 3 years from now, if Iha or Syed, or 5 years from now, Iha or Syed is saved, they'll come up to her, maybe they'll see her, or maybe they'll see her in heaven. And they'll be her crown and joy. You see it? Let's go to part 2. Let me share with you a couple more passages. I wrote this down. If you want to grab a pew Bible, or if you just know your Bible pretty well, let's go to Philippians chapter 4, verse 1. That's on page 982, right? If you want to grab a pew Bible. Page 982. A few books, just a few pages down, Philippians chapter 4, verse 1. This is the way Paul describes his friends, his brothers and sisters of the Philippians church. Therefore, my brothers, whom I love and I long for, my joy and my crown. Stand firm thus in the Lord, my beloved. My joy and my crown. I long. These are people, he longs for them. And how does he look at them? Most of us, when we think of joys and of crowns, we think of some achievement or some kind of reward. But for him, there are certain people, and when he sees them, you're my crown. Go to, if you don't think this is just a one-up verse, go to a few pages down. In your pew Bible, it's page 987. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 19. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 19, page 987 in your pew Bible. Here's how he puts it here. For what is our hope, or joy, or crown, of boasting before our Lord Jesus at his coming? Is it not you? For you are our glory and joy. Do you look at people that way? I mean, I told you about a silly crown, my silly crown and joy that I got on Thanksgiving because, I got to boast over my sister-in-law. You guys lost. So, sorry, Redskins fans, all right? We had a Redskins fan in the first service, okay? And I had to apologize to her, right? Sorry, Redskins fans, but, like that's a silly crown and a joy. But how about an everlasting one and a certain people? And people you don't think that might ever know the Lord. But once they do, and then they begin to radiate a new kind of humility and joy and righteousness and peace. And they become a whole bright new kind of person. And they will be grateful to you and love you for long periods of time. And you will have them forever and forever. Do you think this way? And you think this way enough that you begin to get creative and you start thinking about all means to save some. And you start praying for them and you start moving toward the heart of the Father toward them. And, this could be some of the deepest joys of your life. Let me share with you another story, and this one is just astonishing. I found out about this book, and I'm about halfway through. It's called Messy Grace. It's written by a pastor, a guy named Caleb Kaltenbach. He's a young man, actually. I think he's in his mid to late 30s. And a little bit about his story before I read a little out of this book. Caleb had parents who were divorced when he was 2 years old. He's from the Midwest, grew up in the Missouri area. And they had divorced when he was 2, and then his mom, she fell in love with another lady who was, she started taking these classes at the local university and fell in love with this lady who's doing a PhD, and so his mom was a lesbian, had a lesbian lover, and then they moved about 70 miles away. And so he would spend his weekends, he described how he would spend his weekends with his mom and her lesbian lover, whom I guess he would say is his stepmother. And he had a really difficult relationship with her because he felt like he was competing for his mom's affections with his stepmother. And apparently the way he described it, his stepmother really hated men. And so she didn't particularly sometimes like him because, well, he's a guy, right? And here's the other thing. She had been hurt by men. He could tell that she had been hurt by men. And he, of course, didn't say this out loud, but sometimes he wondered if some of her lesbianism is a reaction to the ways that she's been deeply hurt by men. And then this, it gets even stranger. Apparently his father was gay. So on the weekends, his mom, and he would drive with his mom and stepmother to a McDonald's at the halfway point, and then he would spend the weekend with his dad, and his father was gay. But actually, he didn't know that his father was gay. With his mom, it was like super obvious. She had parties all the time. They would go to all these lesbian gatherings, and they would go to gay pride parades. And so he grew up at these parties where he's the only kid. He's the only kid. There's all these women at these parties, and they're making out with each other. So, I mean, that's kind of the way he said this. Yeah, I grew up watching women make out with each other. And he'd be the only kid, and they were all kind to him. And he says, honestly, he said the parties were fun. And the people were fun. And so his mom and his stepmother were fun. And the gay pride parades were fun. But his dad was this really quiet, more shy, serious person, and he didn't even know that his father was gay until he was in college. Isn't that strange? Right? Now, as he grew up with his mother and stepmother, he actually saw people be very cruel to his mom and stepmom. And they'd go to gay pride parades, and people who at least said they were Christians would come up with, really hateful signs. And they would, say horrible things to them. This is a little bit more of a, probably you wouldn't see this around here, but in more of a conservative part of the country. And so he actually, his mother, he tells a story. They're driving in a car, and the people would stop at the red light, and because she has like pro-lesbian stuff, bumper stickers on her car, they would start spewing stuff at her, saying stuff at her. And she would just look forward, and she would just say, why do Christians have to hate us so much? Now, I don't even know if those are real Christians. Right? And so Caleb grew up thinking that Christians are hateful, and he grew up saying, I want to get them back. So he has this funny chapter in here where he calls it Ninja Christian, because he says, I'm going to go into the church and pretend like I'm a Christian, and I'm going to be like a ninja Christian. And I'm going to learn about Christianity so I could undermine their faith and tear it apart. That was his motivation. He got a Bible so he could just start reading the Bible and looking like a Christian. And then he went to church to be the ninja Christian. And let me pick up here. I started going to this Bible study. I started going to a local church so that I could learn more about how to attack Christianity. I found out there was a huge difference. Okay, well, let me just pause. So, I don't know if you'll meet a gay person in our city who wants to attack Christianity, but you, like I said, you never know when people are interested in God, even if they're interested in Him because they think they're going to hate Him. So he started going to this church. I found out there was a huge difference between this church and the church I grew up in. So he actually went to church for a while, an Episcopal church, and he never learned the Bible at that church because apparently they never taught the Bible. In his sermons at this church, the pastor, Max, explained Bible passages verse by verse. I had never seen this before. How about that? Things you guys get every week where somebody, like I explain verses out of the Bible to you. He'd never even seen this before. Max also had an authority when he preached that I had not noticed in other pastors. To this day, I credit Max with piquing my interest in becoming a pastor. He's a pastor today. I started attending the youth group of this church. The fellowship of this group was incredible. And I gained so many friends. Furthermore, when I learned there was a really sharp campus minister at the University of Missouri, Columbia, so he's in high school now, but he starts going to the college campus, I started going to his Bible study to learn more about Scripture. This man literally had the Bible memorized. I attended his study as much as I could because I had never known anyone as intelligent as this person. So think about this. There's lots of people today who think that in order to be a Christian, you have to commit intellectual suicide. Now, those Christians are just ignorant, stupid, hateful people, just, covering themselves up with their ignorance. But it's just really refreshing to them that they go, you're outside the law. In other words, you're like an intelligent, genuine, authentic person. And when they meet someone like that, they actually find it quite interesting. Interesting enough that Here's a guy, he's not even a believer, and he's going to he goes to church, and then he goes to the local campus ministry, even though he's not even in college. That's like more Christianity than most average Christians, right? I felt like I was getting so much knowledge in the Bible. I was attending church, participating in a youth group, and even going to the Bible study at the university. I had gotten more than I bargained for when I first set out to attack Christianity. When my parents would attack Christians and the Christian faith because they would attack Christians at the dinner table, I started to keep my mouth shut. Quickly, the people in my youth group became like family to me. We went on trips together, hung out together, and exchanged gifts at Christmas. When I wasn't spending time with people in the group, I was studying the Bible. He's not a Christian, okay? This guy's not a Christian. The funniest thing happened in the middle of all this. I started to really like Jesus. As a matter of fact, I even wanted to know what it was like to follow him. I decided to call a Christian friend named Greg, he's a fellow high school student who happens to be the pastor's son. I said to him on the phone, I'm ready to see what it means to follow Jesus. So you know what happens? So they get together, and have a meal at a Chinese restaurant. I mean, it's strange. I see these two white guys sitting at a Chinese restaurant. One guy's the pastor's son. The other one's got, a lesbian mom and a gay dad. And the pastor's son showed up with a binder, opened up the binder while the other kid's eating Chinese food, opened up the binder and started showing him verses out of Romans. This is actually, there's actually a way to show people how to know Jesus. It's called the Road to Romans. It's a series of verses that'll take you through Romans. So I think he's doing the Road to Romans. And he listened to all that and he said, yeah, whatever. I already believe all this. So what's the next step? And Greg looked at him and said, baptism. And so they prayed. And then Caleb got baptized. And then he went home. And then he had the really hard process of letting his parents know, I got saved. I'm a Christian. I'm not just going to church, but I really like this Jesus. And Christians aren't like the way you think. Now, wouldn't you like to know Caleb? I would. And if he was your friend, wouldn't that be a joy and a prize? I mean, his story is like, you can't even make that stuff up. And what if you were the one to help Caleb? You were in that youth group. Or you were Greg. Or you were the campus minister at University of Missouri, Columbia. And one day, every time you meet Greg, isn't he a bigger prize and a crown and a joy? And when you're in heaven one day, see, I don't know if you realize this, there isn't just one person. If one person comes to the Lord, do you know that you're changing history? You're changing his kids. You're changing his marriage. You're changing his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren. That there'll be a day when Max, Caleb, the youth group kids in that church, they're going to be wandering around heaven. And Caleb's grandchildren are going to come up to us. You're from that church. My dad told me about you guys from that church. They're all a part of your crown and joy. You get it? And isn't that worth? This thing that we do, it's not easy. I know it's not easy. Trying to be a Jew to a Jew and to those outside the law, and to be weak. I mean, it's not even fun sharing your weakness. It's like, I don't want to let you know how kind of messed up and broken I am, just sharing your weakness. And yet, look what it could lead to. The crown and joy. Let me close my message. In 1 Corinthians 9, it says we are to run a race. And he says, I train my body to run this race to receive an imperishable wreath, a prize that can never be taken away from him. I'll just show you through one more story, and I'll close my message. And when I think of this, it's very personal to me. I have a friend, when I read I don't know if you guys have noticed this. I love these stories about people that you would never, if you come to our church, you know that I love telling these stories. I can just never get enough of them. I have a friend, and I won't say his real name because I hope that one of these days he'll walk into our church, and then it might be a little awkward. You're like, oh, it's him! Okay, that might be a little awkward, okay? But I'll just call him John, and I've known John since college. And John, one of his parents is Asian, one of his parents is Caucasian. His father was an atheist. He's an atheist. He grew up. He's one of these people that grew up thinking like science explains everything and religion is just mythology, and we became really close friends in college, and we're still close friends. We still regularly email each other. He lives not too far away. He lives in the Bay Area. He's married with 2 kids, and I have been praying for him. So I'll give it away. I'm in my mid-40s now, and we met when I was 21. I've literally been praying for him more than 20 years. And there have been many times I made lots of mistakes. I try to argue with him and try to break down his worldview, and then he just gets mad at me, and he thinks I'm being a jerk. But I found that if I will pray for him, if I'll share my weakness with him. Actually, he knows quite a bit about Christianity. And he's not there yet. As far as I know, he's still an atheist, but over time, he's come to know quite a bit about Christianity, and he comes to respect Christianity. And he'll even talk about the gospel. The gospel, and when he can walk in here and talk like he's a Christian. You know that? And he would fool you. But sometimes he talks in a way that when he talks about Jesus, you can feel like there's almost a longing that he wishes he could believe. And recently, he's a fairly accomplished piano player. He's really into classical music, and I am too. I don't know if you know that, but I'm into classical music. And he's recently, started listening to this one particular famous composer who was a devout Christian. And he started realizing that all of this guy's music is worship music. It's like he's listened to this guy his whole life, and it's dawned on him that all of this guy's music is written in Jesus. And as he started listening to him, he started to tell, I can tell it's written to Jesus. And it's different. And he could feel like there's like something of heaven cracking into that music. He wrote that to me in his email. I did not ask him about that. I mean, I've been listening to this guy. Here is what I hear in the music. I'm like reading the email like this. It's been 20 plus years. Look, I'm not some great Christian. I am not this way because I'm a good Christian. It's because you could look at this passage. Let me close up this passage this way. Paul says, I will serve all to win some. I will do all means to win some. Now to a Jew, I'll be as a Jew. Well, there was somebody else who came to be a servant to win some. And there was some, to a Jew, he was a Jew. Actually, he really was a Jew. So it wasn't hard for him to be a Jew. And then to the Gentiles, to those outside the law, he showed them a different kind of humanity. And to the weak, he made himself weak. You guys know who I'm talking about, right? He made himself weak as you could possibly get, stripped down naked all the way to the cross. So he could bear our sins, all of us prodigals, and so that we could be his crown of joy. We became Jesus' crown of joy. And because he did that for me, I think I could try to do it for at least one good friend. I long for the day that my friend John bows down to Jesus and is baptized. If he gets saved, his wife gets saved. I pray for him, his wife, and his 2 kids. They get saved. I think I could die happy. Because I would know. He's one of my dearest, closest friends. He's as close to me as my brother. and I'll have him forever. And I hope that you can think that way, and because Jesus came after us so that he could have us forever. And he could love us forever, and we could be loved by him forever. And could you be this way and begin to practice some of these things? And I hope that not just this series and not just our small groups in this throughout the series, that for the rest of your life you'll begin to think all means save some. Let's pray.